The annual Wong family reunion always felt like walking into a minefield, but this year the explosions would be different. I just didn't know it yet. I'm Jordan, and I was running late. Again. The familiar driveway of my parents' suburban home was already lined with luxury cars, Oakley's pearl-white Tesla commanding the prime spot nearest the door. Of course. "Jordan, you made it." My mother rushed forward as I entered, her silk dress swishing. Her smile was genuine, but tinged with that familiar worry. "Oakley's been asking where you were." I bet she has, I thought, smoothing down my simple blue sundress. "Traffic was terrible, Mom. Sorry I'm late." "When isn't she late?" Oakley's voice carried across the room like a perfectly aimed arrow. My sister glided over, champagne in hand, looking every bit the successful real estate agent in her designer outfit. "But I guess that's what happens when you take the bus." "I drove, actually," I said, forcing a smile. "The hospital parking is expensive, but the nurse's lot has some perks." "Oh, right, still doing that nursing thing?" Oakley's perfectly manicured hand waved dismissively. "Brian and I just closed on our 4th investment property this year. You should really think about your future, sis." Before I could respond, my father appeared. "Oakley, sweetheart, tell everyone about that new development deal." I watched as she commanded the room's attention, something she'd perfected since childhood. My cousin Jeremy caught my eye from across the room and gave me a sympathetic smile. "Everyone," Oakley clinked her glass. "I have an announcement." The room hushed. I grabbed a glass of wine from a passing tray, already knowing this wouldn't be good. "Brian and I are looking at the most amazing vacation property in the Hamptons." She gushed. "It's absolutely perfect. Private beach access, 6 bedrooms, infinity pool." She paused dramatically. "Of course, not everyone can afford such investments. Jordan, didn't you mention you were having money troubles?" The room went silent. I froze, wine glass halfway to my lips. "I never said that." I managed. "Oh, come on," Oakley pressed, her smile sharp. "I saw those collection notices in your mailbox when I dropped by last month. No shame in admitting you're struggling. We can't all be successful." Heat crept up my neck as relatives shifted uncomfortably. My mother's face fell, and my father looked anywhere but at me. "I'm doing fine, Oakley," I said quietly. "Fine? Sweetie, you live in a tiny apartment and take the bus. It's okay to admit you need help. That's what family's for." Her voice dripped with fake concern. Brian, her husband, laughed nervously. "Oak, maybe we should—" "No, really," she continued. "Jordan's always been the practical one. Some people just aren't meant for bigger things." That's when something inside me snapped, not in a dramatic, visible way. Instead, it was like a quiet click, the sound of a lock turning, a plan falling into place. I smiled, took a sip of wine, and said nothing. "Jordan?" my mother ventured, concerned by my silence. "Oakley's right," I said finally, my voice steady. "Some people aren't meant for bigger things. They're meant for smarter things." My sister's smile faltered slightly. "Excuse me," I said, pulling out my phone as it buzzed. "Work emergency." As I stepped onto the back porch, I saw Guy's message. "Everything's set. The papers are signed." I looked through the window at my family. At Oakley holding court, at my parents beaming at their successful daughter, at the relatives who'd watched this dynamic play out for years. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my real estate agent. "Congratulations, the Hampton house is yours." I smiled, thinking of Oakley's face when she'd announced her plans for that very same house. She had no idea I'd been quietly watching her social media posts about it for months. No idea I'd been building my wealth slowly and strategically while she flaunted hers. No idea that her perfect vacation home dream had just been purchased by her struggling little sister. I typed back quickly. "Perfect. Don't let anyone know about the sale yet." The party continued inside, laughter and chatter floating through the windows. I stayed on the porch a moment longer, savoring the calm before the storm I was about to create. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with perfect timing. "You're actually insane," Guy said, stirring his coffee as we sat in our usual corner of the hospital cafeteria. Like, actually certifiably insane. And I love it. 3 days had passed since the family reunion, and I was still riding the high of my secret purchase. 7 years of night shifts and living below my means had to pay off sometime. But the Hamptons house? That's next level petty. He leaned forward, grinning. Tell me everything. I pulled out my phone, showing him the listing photos. 6 bedrooms, private beach access, and the infinity pool Oakley wouldn't shut up about on Instagram. The same one she's been posting about for months? The very same. I swiped through more photos. Remember when I started picking up extra shifts 4 years ago? When Oakley told everyone at Christmas dinner that nursing was a backup career for people who couldn't hack medical school? I nodded. That's when I started seriously investing. Every extra shift, every bonus, straight into my portfolio. While she was posting about her designer handbags, I was meeting with financial advisors. And nobody knew? Why would they? Oakley made sure everyone saw me as the struggling little sister. It was the perfect cover. My phone buzzed, a text from Jeremy. Oak's posting about the house again. You seeing this? I opened Instagram. There was Oakley, posed in front of the house during what must have been her viewing, caption reading, "Dreams do come true. Can't wait to make this paradise ours. Blessed Israel luxury, real estate." Guy nearly choked on his coffee. She doesn't know? The seller's agent is keeping it quiet at my request. She thinks she's getting it. Jordan. A sharp voice cut through our conversation. Dr. Martinez hurried over. Multiple car pileup coming in. We need all hands. I grabbed my coffee. Back to reality. Dinner tonight? Wouldn't miss it. This is better than Netflix. The next 12 hours were a blur of trauma patients, surgical assists, and paperwork. By the time I got to Guy's apartment, I was exhausted but wired. Your timing is incredible, he said, handing me a glass of wine as I collapsed onto his couch. Look what just came in the mail. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter from a development company, offering to buy my new property for significantly more than I'd paid. They're building a resort complex, Guy explained. They've been trying to buy up properties in that area. I stared at the number. It was enough to double my investment instantly. You're not considering it, are you? Guy asked, reading my expression. No way. This isn't about money. I set the letter down. You weren't there for my graduation. The nursing ceremony? I thought your family went. They did. Oakley showed up late, talked through my speech, then spent the whole dinner talking about her new real estate license. When I mentioned I'd graduated top of my class, she said, "That's cute, but let's talk about real achievements." Guy winced. Your parents? Dad asked Oakley for investment advice. Mom just wanted everyone to get along. I took a long sip of wine. That's been my whole life. Oakley shines, I fade into the background, but not anymore. My phone lit up with a family group chat notification. Oakley had sent a message. Big news coming soon. Family dinner at my place this weekend to celebrate. She thinks she's getting the house, Guy said, reading over my shoulder. She thinks a lot of things. I showed him my banking app, where years of careful saving and investing had built a surprisingly robust portfolio. Nobody ever asked how I could afford to live alone in the city on a nurse's salary. They just assumed I was struggling. Because that's what Oakley told them to think. Exactly. I forwarded the development company's letter to my email. You know what the best part is? I learned everything about real estate investment from listening to her brag about it at family gatherings. Every strategy, every market trend. She taught me everything I needed to know to beat her at her own game. Guy's phone buzzed. He laughed. Jeremy wants to know if you're coming to Oakley's dinner. Wouldn't miss it. I pulled up the property documents on my phone. The closing papers should be finalized by Friday. Just in time for her announcement. Just in time, I agreed, thinking about the look on Oakley's face when she realized her dream house announcement was about to turn into my victory lap. Another text came through, this time from my mother. Oakley says you haven't RSVP'd for Saturday. Please come, sweetheart. Family should stick together. I smiled as I typed my response. Don't worry, Mom. I wouldn't miss this for the world. Saturday arrived with the weight of anticipation. I pulled up to Oakley's McMansion just as Jeremy was getting out of his car. Perfect timing, he said, falling into step beside me. You ready for whatever this is? More ready than she is, I muttered, clutching my purse with its hidden envelope. Inside, Oakley's house was a shrine to her supposed success. All chrome and white surfaces, designer everything. Family photos lined the walls, carefully curated to show her best angles. Jordan, Brian greeted me with his usual warmth. Oak's in the kitchen. She's been cooking all day. She cooks now? Jeremy whispered as we walked through. She orders in and transfers it to her own dishes, I whispered back. Always has. The kitchen was a flurry of activity. Oakley stood at the island, arranging takeout containers' contents onto serving platters while my mother helped. Empty bags from an upscale catering service were poorly hidden in the trash. Jordan, you came. Oakley's smile was bright but didn't reach her eyes. I was just telling Mom about the amazing news. Can't wait to hear it, I said, accepting a glass of wine from Brian. Oh, you're going to love it. It's life-changing. She straightened a platter of what I recognized as the local bistro's signature appetizers. Unlike some people, I believe in growing and advancing. My mother shot me an apologetic look. The doorbell rang again. My father arrived with Guy, who I'd invited as moral support. Oakley's eyebrows raised slightly at his presence. Still hanging out with hospital people? She asked, her tone dripping with condescension. Still pretending you cook? I countered quietly, nodding toward the hidden takeout containers. Her eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, Brian called everyone to the dining room. Before we eat, Oakley announced, standing at the head of the table, I have amazing news to share. She gripped Brian's hand. As you know, we've been looking at the most gorgeous property in the Hamptons. I felt Guy squeeze my knee under the table. And after some very exclusive negotiations, she continued, we are absolutely thrilled to announce. Actually, Brian interrupted, checking his phone with a frown. Honey, I just got an email from our agent. Not now, sweetie. As I was saying, Oak, the house sold. To someone else. The silence that followed was deafening. What? Oakley's voice was sharp. That's impossible. Check again. It sold 2 days ago. The agent says the new owner wants to remain anonymous for now. Oakley's face flushed red. But we had an agreement. We were going to announce. We had a viewing, Oak. We never made an offer. Because they promised to hold it for us. I took a slow sip of wine, watching my sister's perfect facade crack. Well, my father said, clearly trying to salvage the moment. There will be other properties, sweetheart. No. Oakley slammed her hand on the table, making the plates rattle. That was our house. My house. I already told everyone. She stopped, noticing my calm expression. Why aren't you more upset about this? Why would I be upset? Because you're supposed to be happy for me. You're supposed to be jealous. Jeremy choked on his wine. Oak, Brian said softly. Maybe we should take a minute. No, this was supposed to be perfect. I was going to show everyone. She trailed off, her carefully constructed image crumbling. Show everyone what? I asked, my voice steady. How successful I am. How much better. She caught herself, but not before our parents exchanged worried glances. Better than who, Oakley? She didn't answer, but her glare said everything. Dinner's getting cold. My mother interjected weakly. You know what's interesting? I said, reaching for my purse. Success isn't always about who shouts the loudest. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I pulled out my phone, pulling up the property photos. Sometimes the quiet ones surprise you. Jordan, Guy warned softly, but I was done being quiet. Remember when you told everyone I was probably going bankrupt? I slid my phone across the table. Funny thing about that, Oakley grabbed the phone, her eyes widening as she scrolled through the familiar photos of her dream house. her dream house with my name on the deed. "This is a joke," she whispered. "The closing papers arrived yesterday," I said, pulling the envelope from my purse. "Would you like to see them?" The room erupted in chaos. Brian was staring at me in disbelief. My father was demanding explanations, and my mother had her head in her hands. But all I could see was Oakley's face, the exact moment she realized her struggling little sister had beaten her at her own game. "How?" she managed finally. I stood up, smoothing my dress. "Maybe we should talk about real achievements." "This isn't possible," Oakley kept saying, flipping through the closing papers with trembling hands. "You can't afford this. You're a nurse." "A nurse who knows how to invest," I replied. "You taught me that, remember? All those family dinners where you talked about market trends and property values?" Brian leaned over Oakley's shoulder, examining the documents. "These are legitimate. She really bought it. But—" my father started, then stopped, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "Jordan, how long have you been planning this?" "Planning?" I laughed. I just saw an investment opportunity and took it. "Isn't that what you always praised Oakley for doing?" My sister's face had gone from red to white. "You did this to spite me." "Did I? Or did you just assume nobody else could achieve what you wanted to achieve?" "Girls," my mother pleaded, "please don't fight." "We're not fighting, Mom," I said, taking another sip of wine. "We're having a business discussion. Isn't that right, Oakley?" Jeremy cleared his throat. "Maybe we should eat before everything gets cold." "How?" Oakley demanded, ignoring him. "Where did you get the money?" "You really want to know?" I pulled out my phone again, opening my investment portfolio. "Every time you mocked my career, I picked up an extra shift. Every time you bragged about your success, I invested more. Do you know how much night shift differential adds up to over 7 years? But your apartment, the bus, is in an up-and-coming neighborhood that's tripled in value since I bought it. And I take the bus because parking at the hospital costs a fortune. It's called being practical," Guy spoke up. "Jordan's one of the highest-paid nurses in the trauma department. She's been published in medical journals. That's enough," Oakley snapped. She turned to Brian. "Call our lawyer. There has to be a way to contest this." Brian shifted uncomfortably. "Oak, we never made an offer. We have no legal grounds to—" "Then make some. This is our house." "No," I said quietly. "It's my house. And I think you're having trouble with that because you never thought I could be competition." The room fell silent again. My father was staring at his plate. My mother was close to tears, and Jeremy was trying very hard not to smile. "Competition?" Oakley laughed, but it sounded hollow. "This isn't about competition. This is about you trying to steal my dream." "Your dream?" I stood up, placing both hands on the table. "Let's talk about dreams, Oakley. Let's talk about my graduation ceremony, where you showed up late and talked through my speech. Or the time I got promoted to head trauma nurse, and you told everyone it was cute that I was playing doctor. Or how about last month's reunion, when you tried to humiliate me in front of our entire family? That's different. I was trying to help." "Help?" Guy interjected. "By spreading rumors about her finances?" "Stay out of this," Oakley snapped. "This is family business." "He is family," I said firmly. "He's been more supportive than you ever were." Brian suddenly stood up. "Oak, we need to talk. Now." "About what?" "About the credit card statements I found. About the real reason we couldn't make an offer on the house." The color drained from Oakley's face. "Brian, not now." "Yes, now." He turned to the rest of us. "I'm sorry, everyone. We need a minute." They disappeared into the kitchen, but their heated whispers carried back to the dining room. "Should we—" My mother gestured vaguely at the food. "Actually," I said, gathering my things, "I should go. I have contractors meeting me at my new house tomorrow morning to discuss renovations." "Jordan," my father said suddenly, his voice rough. "Wait." I paused, purse in hand. I'm sorry. We should have paid more attention. To what, Dad? To my achievements? To the fact that I was building something while Oakley was just talking about building something? From the kitchen, Oakley's voice rose. I was going to pay it back. 60,000 in secret credit card debt? Brian shot back. When were you planning to tell me? My mother's hands flew to her mouth. Jeremy whistled low. I think, Guy said, standing up. That's our cue to leave. As we walked to our cars, the sounds of Oakley and Brian's argument followed us into the night air. Jeremy caught up with us in the driveway. That, he said, was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It's not over, I replied, looking back at the house. This was just the beginning. What do you mean? I smiled, pulling out my keys. The contractors aren't just doing renovations tomorrow. They're doing an assessment for that resort development company. Guy's eyes widened. You're not... Like I said, I learned from the best. Sometimes the biggest deals happen in stages. The next morning, I stood on the private beach of my new property, watching the waves roll in as contractors walked the perimeter. The resort development company's representative, Sarah, stood beside me with a tablet in hand. The location is perfect, she said. Your property is the key piece we need to complete the resort complex. And the offer? She showed me the number on her tablet. It was triple what I'd paid. That's just the starting point, she added. We're also offering a lifetime membership to the resort once it's built, plus... My phone buzzed. Oakley's name flashed on the screen for the 5th time that morning. I declined the call. Everything okay? Sarah asked. Family drama, nothing unusual. I gestured toward the house. Tell me more about your plans for the property. As she launched into details about the resort complex, another call came through, this time from Jeremy. You need to check Instagram, he said when I answered. Oakley's having a meltdown. I pulled up the app. Oakley had posted a series of stories, each more unhinged than the last. The latest showed her crying in her car. Family betrayal is the worst kind. Can't believe my own sister would do this to me. Ms. Wong? Sarah was waiting expectantly. Sorry, what were you saying about the beachfront access? Before she could answer, a familiar Tesla came roaring up the private drive. Oh no, I muttered as Oakley emerged, designer sunglasses hiding what I assumed were puffy eyes. We need to talk, she shouted, marching across the sand. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Should I give you a moment? No need. I turned to face my sister. Oakley, I'm in a business meeting. Business meeting? She laughed hysterically. Is that what you call destroying your family? The contractors paused their work, watching the scene unfold. The only thing being destroyed is your illusion of superiority, I said calmly. Now, if you'll excuse us, Brian's leaving me. That stopped me cold. What? He found out about everything. The credit cards, the shopping, the lies about our investments. She pulled off her sunglasses, revealing mascara-streaked cheeks. He's staying at his brother's house. Are you happy now? Sarah cleared her throat. I can come back another time. No, I said firmly. Oakley's leaving. You can't just... Actually, I can. This is private property. My private property. And you're trespassing. Your property? She gestured wildly at the house. This was supposed to be mine. My dream house, my perfect life. Perfect life? I stepped closer. You mean the one you built on credit cards and lies? The one where you had to put everyone else down to feel superior? I never... Remember my first apartment? You told everyone I lived in a dangerous neighborhood because I couldn't afford better. That neighborhood is now the hottest real estate market in the city. Jordan, or when I got my first promotion. You said nursing was a dead-end job. Well, guess what? While you were maxing out credit cards to keep up appearances, I was investing my dead-end salary. Sarah's tablet pinged. She glanced at it, then at me. Ms. Wong, the board just approved a higher offer. Oakley's eyes darted to the tablet. What offer? None of your business. I said, but Oakley had already snatched the tablet. Her face went pale as she read. A resort complex? You're selling to developers? Maybe. Or maybe I'll keep it and rent it out. Or maybe I'll just let it sit empty. The point is, it's my decision. You can't. I can. And you know what the best part is? I took the tablet back. I learned everything about real estate from you. Every boast, every brag about your investments. I was listening, taking notes, learning. Tears streamed down her face. I'm your sister. Yes, you are. And for years I watched you succeed while you made sure everyone saw me fail. Now you get to watch me succeed. Ms. Wong? Sarah gestured toward the house. The contractors need your input on the renovation plans. I turned to go, then paused. You know what's ironic, Oakley? If you'd ever bothered to actually be a sister instead of a competitor, we could have done amazing things together. Please, she whispered. Don't do this. Security will escort you out, I said, nodding to the property guards who were already approaching. Don't come back unless you're invited. As I walked away, I heard her call out, Mom and Dad will never forgive you for this. I turned back one last time. Maybe not, but for the first time in my life, I forgive myself for letting you make me feel small. The sound of the waves drowned out her response as I walked toward my house, with Sarah and the contractors. Behind me, I heard the guards politely but firmly escorting Oakley back to her car. Sometimes karma needs a little help, I thought. And sometimes the best revenge is simply succeeding on your own terms. Your mother's called 6 times, Guy said, setting a coffee in front of me in the hospital break room. Jeremy says Oakley's moved back in with your parents. A week had passed since the confrontation at the beach house. I'd been pulling extra shifts to avoid the family drama, but it was catching up to me. Dad left a voicemail, I said, checking my phone. Something about fixing the family and being the bigger person. Are you going to call him back? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Brian. Can we meet? There's something you need to know. That's new, Guy said, reading over my shoulder. You going to do it? I typed back. Coffee shop across from the hospital. 30 minutes. Brian was already there when I arrived, looking exhausted in a wrinkled suit. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down. I know things are messy right now. That's one word for it. He pulled out a folder. You need to see these before you make any decisions about the property. Inside were credit card statements, loan documents, and bank records, all with Oakley's name. She's underwater, Brian said quietly. The designer clothes, the fancy cars, the image she created, it's all debt. She was counting on that house to fix everything. How? She was going to use it as collateral for a loan to pay off the credit cards. When that fell through, he ran a hand through his hair. I found out she'd been forging my signature on loan applications. My coffee went cold as I flipped through the documents. The numbers were staggering. Why are you showing me this? Because she's not just destroying herself. She's dragging your parents into it. They're talking about taking out a second mortgage to help her. My phone buzzed. A text from Jeremy. Family emergency meeting at your parents' house tonight. Oakley's idea. You coming? I showed Brian the message. She doesn't know I'm meeting you, he said. But Jordan, be careful. She's desperate. That evening, I pulled up to my parents' house to find it full again, but this time the atmosphere was heavy. Oakley sat on the couch, looking smaller without her usual designer outfit and perfect makeup. Jordan, my mother rushed forward. Thank goodness you came. What's this about? It's about family, my father said. About making things right. Oakley stood up, hands clasped in front of her. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About mistakes and consequences. Oakley, please let me finish. She took a shaky breath. I've hurt people, made bad choices, but I want to make it right. Starting with you, Jordan. Jeremy, sitting in the corner, caught my eye and shook his head slightly. I've been terrible to you, Oakley continued. Competitive, cruel, dismissive. And now I'm paying for it. But it's not just me suffering. Mom and Dad are taking out a second mortgage to cover your debts? I interrupted. The room went silent. How did you... My father started. Brian told me everything. I turned to my parents. Did she tell you about the forged loan applications? The maxed out credit cards? Jordan, please. My mother pleaded. She's trying to make amends. No, she's trying to manipulate you into bailing her out. Again. Oakley's facade cracked. You don't understand. I need help. What you need is consequences. We're putting up the house as collateral, my father said, just until she gets back on her feet. Dad, no, you can't risk everything you've worked for. She's our daughter. So am I. The words echoed in the sudden silence. But you never mortgaged your house when I was starting out. You never rushed to rescue me when things were hard. That's different, my mother said weakly. Why? Because I didn't cry and manipulate? Because I solved my own problems? Oakley stepped forward. If you sell the beach house to those developers, I could... There it is. I laughed. The real reason for this family meeting. You want my house? It could save all of us. Pay off my debts, save Mom and Dad's house. Your debts, not ours, not mine. I grabbed my purse. And that house? It's not for sale. Not to the developers, and certainly not to fix your mistakes. Jordan, wait. My father called as I headed for the door. I turned back one last time. You know what the difference is between Oakley and me? I learned from my mistakes. She just expects everyone else to fix them. The door closed behind me, cutting off their protests. In my car, I pulled out my phone and called Sarah. About that resort offer, I said. I've made my decision. 2 weeks later, I stood in the newly renovated living room of the beach house, watching the sunset through floor-to-ceiling windows. The sound of cars pulling up the driveway broke the peaceful moment. They're here, Guy said, adjusting the appetizer trays we'd set out. Ready? Jeremy asked, handing me a glass of champagne. I nodded. Time to end this. The doorbell rang. I'd invited the entire family, parents, Oakley, Brian, cousins, everyone, for what they thought was a housewarming party. They didn't know about the papers sitting on my desk, waiting to be signed. My mother entered first, clutching her purse like a shield. Oh, Jordan, it's beautiful. The renovations turned out perfectly, I said, watching Oakley's face as she took in the space that could have been hers. Brian hung back, avoiding his wife's gaze. They still weren't living together, according to Jeremy's updates. Well, my father said, clearing his throat, this is quite something. It is, isn't it? I gestured for everyone to sit. But before we celebrate, there's something we need to discuss. Oakley's head snapped up. You're selling to the developers? Not exactly. I picked up the folder from my desk. I've created a trust. A what? My mother asked. A family trust. The house will be its main asset. I started distributing copies of the paperwork. I'm transferring ownership to the trust with specific conditions. Brian leaned forward, reading quickly. This is unexpected. The house will serve as a family vacation property, available to all of us on a rotating schedule. I watched their faces as they read. But there are rules. Rules? Oakley's voice was small. First, the house can never be used as collateral for loans or sold without unanimous consent from all trust members. Second, usage rights are dependent on financial responsibility. Meaning what? My father asked. Meaning anyone who wants to use the house must provide proof of financial stability. No outstanding debts, no legal issues, no hidden credit cards. Oakley's hands trembled as she held the papers. Additionally, I continued, I've arranged for financial counseling services, fully paid for by the trust, available to any family member who needs it. Jordan, my mother started, tears in her eyes. I'm not finished. The trust also includes a scholarship fund for future generations of our family, specifically for medical and nursing education. The room was silent as my words sank in. Why? Oakley finally asked. Because despite everything, we're family, and families should lift each other up, not tear each other down. I met her eyes, but they also shouldn't enable destructive behavior. The counseling services, Brian said slowly. That's your condition for Oakley, isn't it? I nodded. Complete the program, get your finances in order, and you'll have equal access to the house. The same rules apply to everyone. And Mom and Dad's mortgage? Oakley asked. Will remain their responsibility, but the trust includes provisions for emergency family assistance, with strict oversight and repayment terms. My father stood up abruptly. I need some air. Dad, no, let me speak. He turned to face me. All these years I thought. He shook his head. I was wrong about you, Jordan. So wrong. We both were, my mother added, wiping her eyes. Oakley hadn't moved, still staring at the papers. I don't deserve this. No, you don't, I agreed. But that's not the point. The point is giving all of us a chance to do better. The financial counseling, she said quietly. When can I start? First session is scheduled for Monday, if you want it. She nodded, unable to speak. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out a final document. Brian, this is for you. He took the paper, eyes widening. This is evidence of the forged loan applications. What you do with it is up to you. The room held its breath as Brian stared at the document, then at Oakley. Finally, he tore it in half. Everyone deserves a second chance, he said, but only one. Oakley burst into tears. Now, I said, raising my glass, who's ready for that housewarming party? As the tension broke and people began to mingle, Jeremy pulled me aside. You planned this all along, didn't you? The trust, the counseling, everything? I smiled, watching my family move through the space. My mother examining the kitchen, my father out on the deck. Oakley and Brian talking quietly in a corner. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, I said. Sometimes it's being the person they never thought you could be. And sometimes, Guy added, joining us, it's showing them who you've been all along. Through the windows, the sun had set completely, leaving the beach in darkness. But inside, the house glowed with new beginnings and second chances. The autumn breeze carried the scent of salt and coffee as I sat on the beach house deck, reviewing financial reports. The trust's first quarterly meeting was about to begin, and I wanted everything perfect. Need help with those? Oakley appeared, carrying 2 mugs. She looked different, simpler, but somehow more genuine without the designer facade. Thanks. I accepted the coffee. How was your counseling session? Good. Hard, but good. She sat down. Brian and I are talking about moving into a smaller place, something within our actual budget. That's great. It's weird, actually living within my means, but also freeing? She gestured at the papers. How's the trust doing? See for yourself. I handed her the reports. Your credit score is up 50 points. 62, actually. She smiled slightly. I check it obsessively now, part of the recovery program. The sliding door opened as our parents arrived, followed by Jeremy and Guy. Ready for the first official meeting? Jeremy asked, setting up his laptop. As the trust's designated record keeper, he'd taken his role seriously. Before we start, my father said, I have something to say. Everyone turned to look at him. He pulled out an envelope. The bank approved our refinancing application. We're not taking the second mortgage. Dad, no, Jordan. You were right. We can't keep enabling destructive patterns. He looked at Oakley. For any of us. Oakley nodded, blinking back tears. Now, my mother said, pulling out her own folder. Shall we discuss the holiday rotation schedule? As they debated who would get the house for Thanksgiving, I noticed Brian hanging back, watching Oakley with cautious hope. The counselor thinks we might be ready to move back in together, Oakley said quietly, following my gaze. If we stick to our new budget. And the shopping? I unsubscribed from all the luxury marketing emails, deleted my shopping apps. She laughed softly. Turns out I don't need $400 sunglasses to be happy. All right, everyone, Jeremy called. First order of business, the scholarship fund. Actually, I interrupted, there's something else first. I pulled out my phone, showing them the email I'd received that morning. The resort developers made another offer. The deck went silent. Jordan, my mother started. You're not considering... No, but look at the last paragraph. They leaned in as I read aloud. In lieu of purchase, we propose a partnership. The trust maintains ownership while we develop and manage the adjacent properties. Your beach house would be the crown jewel of the coastline, increasing in value as the area develops. That's brilliant, Brian said, his real estate experience showing. The trust gets all the benefits of development without losing control. It's your decision, Oakley said softly. You earned this. No, I replied. It's our decision. That's what the trust is for. My father cleared his throat. I vote yes, for the Future Generations Fund. One by one, they voted. When it came to Oakley, she paused. I used to think success meant having everything I wanted, she said. Now I know it means being worthy of what you have. She looked at me. Yes. Then it's unanimous. Jeremy typed rapidly. I'll update the trust documents. Speaking of documents, Guy said, pulling out a newspaper. Show them, Jordan. I took the paper, opening to the healthcare section. There, under medical innovation, was a photo of me and my trauma team, highlighting our new emergency protocol that had reduced critical response times by 30%. My little sister, Oakley said, but this time there was no condescension in her voice. Only pride. Not so little anymore, my father added. As the meeting continued, I watched my family. Really watched them. My parents learning to treat their daughters equally. Brian and Oakley rebuilding their marriage on honesty instead of appearances. Jeremy taking his role as family mediator seriously. Last item, Jeremy announced. The trust's mission statement needs approval. I stood up. I have a suggestion. Everyone turned to listen. The Wong Family Trust exists not to create wealth, but to create value. Not to enable, but to empower. Not to divide, but to unite. Through financial responsibility, educational opportunity, and shared experiences, we build a legacy of strength, wisdom, and genuine success. Oakley wiped her eyes. It's perfect. As the others nodded in agreement, I looked out at the ocean. The waves rolled in steadily, unchanging yet always changing, like family itself. Well, Guy said, raising his coffee mug, to genuine success. To family, I corrected, raising mine. To both, Oakley added softly. Because sometimes they're the same thing. The sun broke through the clouds, warming the deck as we clinked our mugs together, the sound mixing with the waves. A perfect harmony of endings and beginnings, of lessons learned and bridges rebuilt, of revenge transformed into redemption.
The Texas sun was rising through the morning mist. The white mansion standing on the vast grounds of the Preston Hollow district gleamed with dignity in the morning sun. The green trees swayed in the wind, and fresh air drifted through the gardens. In this corner of the upscale residential area, I now faced the biggest choice of my life. The bedside alarm clock shows 6 o'clock. Looking at my sleeping husband John's face, I quietly got up. My reflection in the mirror shows long blonde hair, a slim figure, and green eyes that are beginning to show signs of fatigue. I'm Rachel Smith, 28 years old. I graduated top of my class from the Illinois Institute of Technology School of Architecture and was thriving as a designer at a major architectural firm. Yes, that was in the past. Drawing blueprints was my calling. Putting my soul into every line and angle, shaping people's lives. That passion hasn't died even now. It's just that now, I'm drawing a different kind of blueprint, an invisible one for our family's future. Mama. My child's voice from the next room brings my thoughts back to reality. My treasure with angel-like golden curls and sparkling blue eyes. My 14-month-old daughter Alice strangely lights up with joy whenever she sees construction sites. The sight of her tiny hands clapping with delight every time the crane moves warms my heart. Perhaps she inherited my passion for architecture. Good morning, Princess. I kiss Alice's soft cheek as I hold her, our morning ritual. The scent of baby powder and the warmth of her infant breath signal the start of my day. Heading to the living room, John was already putting on his suit jacket. At 6 feet tall with a sturdy build, he's 32 years old. His eyes behind his intellectual-looking glasses always gaze at us kindly. As Vice President of Smith Construction and next in line for presidency, he's a capable executive whom everyone acknowledges at work. He has deep trust from business partners and high regard from employees. However, at home, especially in front of his mother, he becomes almost like a different person, indecisive. I need to leave by 7 again. Have a meeting with Mother. John heads to the entrance hurriedly as he says this. Watching his back, I recalled our meeting 2 years ago. A meeting at a construction site. It was when Smith Construction took on the construction of the high-rise building I had designed. As we shared our passion for architecture, we naturally became attracted to each other. My heart gradually opened to his sincere personality and earnest attitude toward architecture. 6 months of dating, an unexpected pregnancy, and then marriage. I remember Mother Helen's opposition. A 58-year-old female executive with silver short hair, always dressed in Chanel or Hermes brand suits. Having protected the company in a male-dominated society for 20 years after her husband's death, she possessed both strength and stubbornness, and from the beginning, she wasn't pleased with me. An architect is not suitable for this family line. A Smith family wife should protect the household. Those harsh words still ring in my ears. Known as one of Texas's leading female executives, my mother-in-law was strangely conservative and sometimes showed attitudes that could be taken as misogynistic. Despite being a woman herself, she strongly believed in traditional values. Living with my mother-in-law began right after marriage. This Preston Hollow District mansion has 2 guest houses besides the main house. We live in one of them. Even though it's within a vast 5-acre property, I feel the constant pressure of being under my mother-in-law's surveillance. Since construction of our new home began, that gaze has felt even heavier. 3 months until completion. But will that day really come? Since construction started, interference from my mother-in-law seems to be growing stronger day by day. Our daily routine begins with John leaving for work at 7 a.m. I dedicate my mornings to childcare, making Alice's milk, changing diapers, and playing together. In the afternoons, I spend time with Alice at the nearby park. While feeling the changes of seasons, I chat with other mothers about raising children. And at night, the whole family has dinner at mother-in-law's mansion. Time passes formally in the dignified dining room where silver cutlery clinks. On the surface, a peaceful life. However, the days of quitting my job to cut ties with my architectural passion and trying to adapt to new family relationships are not easy at all. As the Texas sun rises each morning, I ask myself, is this really the life I wanted? Holding Alice close, I look out the window. Our house under construction looms hazily beyond the morning mist. The sound of heavy machinery engines began to echo at the construction site as the morning mist cleared. 1 month since groundbreaking. Our new home is gradually taking shape in this upscale residential area of suburban Dallas. The 4,000 square foot, 2-story mansion is a design I personally supervised. It's my masterpiece, incorporating all the knowledge I learned at Illinois Institute of Technology and my experience at the design firm. Watching the daily progress had become my greatest joy. However, that joy didn't last long. This design doesn't have enough natural light. Is such a large window on the south side really necessary? Helen's cold voice echoes across the morning construction site. The perfectly calculated placement of south-facing windows. A design meant to capture natural light throughout the day, from sunrise to sunset. It should have been ideal from an energy efficiency standpoint. And yet, amateur thinking. Only concerned with appearances, not practicality. Those words pierce my heart. I am an architecture professional. This design was calculated countless times and verified through simulation software. So why? My arms tighten around Alice. Oh, you brought her again. Construction sites are dangerous. And without a helmet too. Deep wrinkles form between Helen's brows. Her figure in the luxury brand suit is intimidating as always. In my arms, Alice gazes at the construction site, her eyes sparkling. The workers give gentle smiles as she claps her tiny hands in delight whenever the crane moves. The veteran craftsman seemed soothed by Alice's innocent smile. Helen cast a cold gaze even at this peaceful scene. Her eyes behind the brand-name sunglasses were as cold as ice. A girl can't become an heir, so why do you keep bringing her to construction sites? Shouldn't you be teaching her housework and sewing instead? With those words, the air at the site froze. The workers' movements stopped for a moment. Only the concrete mixer's engine sound eerily echoed. My heart felt like it skipped a beat. That was just the beginning of the friction. Day by day, Helen's attitude became more blatant. My proposals at the construction site were rejected one after another. As if denying my very existence. This wall color is too dark. It should be lighter. The kitchen layout is impractical. The flow line hasn't been thought through. This is the level of design you get from a housewife raising children. We should have hired a professional designer. Humiliation in front of the site workers became routine. The craftsmen would avert their eyes with apologetic expressions. Women shouldn't come to construction sites. Especially bringing a baby, it shows a lack of common sense. You're just getting in the way of work. When Alice started crying at the sudden sound of heavy machinery, Helen's irritation peaked. Be quiet. Make her stop. It's disrupting the construction progress. At that shout, Alice's crying grew louder. A vicious cycle. The surrounding workers, unsure how to respond, could only stand there. Even when consulting with John, I didn't get the response I hoped for. Rather, the situation worsened. Mother has a point. Construction sites are dangerous, and maybe we should reconsider bringing Alice there," my husband said with a tired expression when he returned from work, loosening his tie, as if it were someone else's problem. The construction industry has long-standing traditions. Mother has fought to protect the company following those traditions. We can't ignore her experience. But John, I'm an architecture expert too. I have confidence in this design. Rachel, you might not understand, but experience in this industry is important. My husband didn't try to take my plea seriously. Rather, he even showed an attitude defending his mother's position. Where had the husband gone who once shared my passion for architecture? Amidst all this, changes began to appear in Helen's behavior as well. She lost her previous composure, and her emotional fluctuations became intense. Especially her way of looking at Alice changed. At first, mere indifference. That gradually changed to irritation. And now, even something resembling hatred seemed to float in those eyes. As if denying Alice's very existence. Helen's attitude at the construction site had clearly transformed as well. Her attention to detail turned into obsession, and perfectionism became almost manic compulsion. This house must be a fortress to protect the Smith family tradition. For that, it must be perfect. Not a single mistake, not a single compromise can be allowed. Helen watched over the construction progress with an almost obsessive enthusiasm. She began demanding abnormal strictness in the workers' work as well. She would show intense anger at even slight imperfections in construction. That figure showed no trace of the former calm executive. One evening, Helen's profile as she gazed at the construction site seemed eerily distorted in the sunset light. That figure looked like something possessed by this house. I shuddered at the ominous feeling. Was this house really being built for our happy future? Or for someone's distorted ambitions? Holding Alice tightly, I was lost in thought. As an architect, as a wife, and as a mother, what should I protect? The Texas sunset cast long shadows over the construction site, as if prophesying an ominous future. The shadows of the heavy machinery stretched abnormally long, looking like giant monsters. June 15, 2024, 10 a.m. The Texas blue sky looked down on the construction site. A gentle breeze blew, quietly fluttering the dust sheets hanging on the construction fence. It should have been a morning like any other. The workers had started their work with usual vigor. The concrete mixer roared, the crane transported materials, and the sound of metal being hammered rang out regularly. The foundation work for the new construction was almost complete, and they were about to start on the framework. However, something was different. Mother Helen had arrived at the site earlier than usual. She who usually wore suits was dressed in work clothes today. Her expression showed an unusual excitement I had never seen before. "Good morning, Mother." I greeted her, but there was no response. As if she couldn't see my existence, Helen kept staring at the construction site. Her eyes were somewhat vacant, yet simultaneously filled with obsession. With Alice in the stroller, I began inspecting the site. Checking yesterday's construction progress, taking notes on several points of concern. My architect's intuition told me design changes were necessary. "Mother, I have a suggestion about this part of the design." The moment I spoke while spreading out the blueprints, everything changed. "I've had enough." Helen's scream echoed across the entire site. The worker's hands stopped. "I'm sick of your amateur suggestions. Are you trying to ruin this house?" That voice no longer had any trace of reason. And then, Helen took action that no one could have predicted. Acting high and mighty without any construction site experience, Helen suddenly ran toward the crane's operator's seat. She climbed into the cockpit and started the engine. I had heard she had a crane operator's license, but never imagined she would operate one herself. What this family needs is a male heir. The crane's arm slowly extended toward Alice's stroller. "A girl is useless. A disgrace to this family. Stop." My scream echoed. But the crane's hook was steadily approaching the stroller. Alice, perhaps not comprehending the situation, watched the crane's movement with interest. The workers became chaotic. Several tried to intervene, but couldn't approach within the crane's range of motion. "Nobody come closer." At Helen's scream, the site froze. That's when John rushed to the site. Probably in response to an emergency call from the company. "Mother, stop." However, Helen seemed not to hear even her son's voice. The crane's hook finally caught the stroller. I ran up the scaffolding, desperately reaching for the stroller. "Rachel, don't defy Mother." My husband's cold voice from behind froze my heart. But my feet didn't stop. Maternal instinct was driving me. The stroller gradually began to float in the air. Alice's smile slowly changed to one of anxiety. Passers-by began pointing their smartphones. Someone must have called the police, as sirens began wailing in the distance. And from the crane's operator's seat, Helen's trembling voice was heard. Her face turning pale. As if she had just now realized what she was doing. Police sirens approached, and the roar of news helicopters began thundering overhead. Onlookers gathered around the site, smartphone flashes lighting up. The spread on social media must have already begun. Police vehicles arrived one after another, and the site was quickly cordoned off. An ambulance also took standby position, its red lights ominously flashing in the morning sunlight. "Everyone, please step away from the site." A police officer's voice rang out. Someone who appeared to be a negotiator was trying to carefully approach the crane. While the crowd was being organized by police, their numbers kept growing. A ring of people with smartphones watched the situation. Like a circus spectacle. My arms still couldn't reach Alice. The suspended stroller swayed slowly under the Texas blue sky. At this moment, no one knew that this would become the decisive moment when the Smith family's distorted tradition collided with new era values. Hours after the incident, I was staring at my smartphone screen with trembling hands in the hospital waiting room. In the white hallway where the smell of disinfectant lingered, only the sound of monitor beeping echoed. The hashtag construction site incident was trending, videos spread instantly, and social media was engulfed in flames of controversy. Local Dallas news organized special programs, with shocking headlines like, "Construction Company President Suspends Grandchild from Crane Dancing Across Screens." National networks began broadcasting breaking news one after another. Abnormal situation at prestigious Texas construction company, clash between tradition and innovation. Tragedy born from generational gap, the media reported the incident from various angles. By night, news of Smith Construction's stock price crash came in. More than 30% drop from the previous day's closing price. Is there a future for Smith Construction? Female executives rampage, dark side of traditional company, old-fashioned nature of construction industry. The media was spreading arbitrary speculation. Even a #BoycottSmithConstruction movement had begun on social media. Busy footsteps crossed the hospital hallway. "Ma'am, your daughter is safe. The examination shows no abnormalities." Looking up at the nurse's voice, Alice reached out to me with a healthy smile. My arms tightened around her small body in the white baby gown. In the treatment room next door, Helen, who had been given tranquilizers, stared vacantly at the ceiling. Her luxury brand suit was wrinkled, an appearance unimaginable from her usual dignified self. The next day, the company was in turmoil. The press crowded the glass entrance, camera flashes constantly flickering. Inquiries from business partners overloaded the phone lines, with the receptionist repeatedly apologizing with a red face. Employees gathered in small groups everywhere, discussing the future with worried expressions. Will we go bankrupt at this rate? Should I consider changing jobs? Criticism from the construction industry also followed one after another, with voices of condemnation rising about loss of credibility for a traditional company and damage to the industry's overall image. Notices of business suspension began arriving simultaneously from other companies in the industry. That night, Helen spoke at the hospital. Outside the window, the twilight sky was stained red. It began 20 years ago, that day. Though her voice was faint, strong will could be felt. To the rhythm of dripping fluid, she began to speak. The days of fighting as a female executive in a male-dominated society after her husband's sudden death. The cold gazes at board meetings, blatant contempt at construction sites, backbiting at industry parties. All the hardships were vividly recounted as if they had happened yesterday. At the first board meeting, one director said, "A woman can't do it. But this company was my husband's, and the Smith family's pride. I had no choice but to protect it. Even if it meant killing my own heart." Those words squeezed my chest. The battle against discrimination had warped her heart. Her inferiority complex about being a woman paradoxically manifested as misogyny, and her obsession with company survival became pathological perfectionism. Perhaps she too was a victim of the times. Yes, even though I'm a woman, I discriminated against women. It's ironic. But I believe that was the way to survive. Every time I saw Alice, I saw my past self. I didn't want her to repeat that suffering. The evening sun streamed into the hospital room, gently illuminating Helen's tired profile. "Mother fought for us." John began speaking quietly. Loosening his suit tie, he sat deep in his chair. As a son who had witnessed his mother's struggles up close after his father's death, he understood those feelings painfully well. Anxiety about the company's survival, obligation to his mother, love for his wife. Caught between these, he regretted that he could only take an indecisive stance. Since childhood, I grew up watching Mother's back. Working late into the night, buried in paperwork even on holidays, yet continuing to protect the company. I was proud of such a mother. But I didn't notice that she was suffering. I was just a coward. I placed my hand on John's shoulder as he shed tears. That's not true. It's not too late. We can create a new path. Holding Alice, I had made my determination. To reclaim myself as an architect. To fight against unreasonable discrimination. And above all, to reconstruct this family in a new way. Perhaps I'm fighting the same battle as you, Mother. But I want to fight differently. Not by bearing it alone, but by supporting each other. The sunset streaming through the hospital window shone as if announcing the dawn of a new era. Alice's golden hair glowed, dyed by the setting sun. A week later, Helen faced a press conference. The conference room set up at a luxury hotel downtown was packed with reporters from across the country. Though tired-looking, her dignified bearing remained intact as she faced the camera flashes. We will revise our previous management policy. We will actively recruit talented individuals regardless of gender or age. For that purpose. She paused for a moment, turning her gaze to Alice and me. Alice showed an innocent smile in my arms, her mother. I appoint Rachel Smith as the head of our new architecture division. With her innovative perspective, Smith Construction will be reborn. We acknowledge past mistakes and intend to move forward as a company befitting the new era. As the venue became bustling, John stood up. His eyes showed no trace of his former indecisiveness. I also have an announcement. Our company will establish the industry's first in-house childcare facility. We will create an environment where working parents can demonstrate their abilities with peace of mind. That should become Smith Construction's new tradition. From that day, Smith Construction began to change. Helen stepped back from the front lines of management, focusing her energy on nurturing young talent as an advisor. Her advice to female employees in particular was convincing, based on her past struggles. Her eyes no longer showed the distorted shadow of the past, but held a gentle light. Alice's laughter echoes in the childcare facility set up at the construction site. She still loves watching the cranes. But now, she proudly looks up at them from a safe distance. Occasionally, Helen can be seen visiting, looking up at the cranes together with her granddaughter. Our new home that I designed was completed as planned. The morning sun streams brilliantly through the large south-facing windows. This light seemed to illuminate the new dawn of the Smith family. The thoughts I poured into the blueprints surely dwell in this house. The scene of family around the dining table. Conversation has increased more than before, smiles have increased. Sometimes there are conflicts of opinion, but rather than fearing them, we use them as nourishment for growth. On holidays, 3 generations increasingly enjoy barbecues in the garden. As an architect, as a wife, as a mother. I still have many challenges in my various roles. But I no longer have doubts. In this house, with this family, we'll build new traditions. That was the truth that incident taught us. And that was the answer we chose. Under the vast Texas sky, our story was entering a new chapter. Director Rachel, I've reviewed the new project proposal. A young employee from the architecture department rushed excitedly to my desk. She's one of the female architects hired as a new graduate. After the incident, Smith Construction took bold steps in hiring women. It's amazing how you've incorporated environmental considerations while maintaining traditional elements. I smile as I review the documents. As head of the architecture department, I continue new challenges daily. While utilizing my experience from my former design firm, I also cherish Smith Construction's traditions. The days of seeking that harmony have been more rewarding than I imagined. In one corner of the office is the corporate childcare facility, Smith Kids. Alice was playing energetically there today too. She's now 20 months old and growing steadily. Her character of loving to watch construction sites hasn't changed, but now she looks up at the cranes with other children from a safe observation deck. When I ask, "Do you want to be an architect in the future?" her energetic nod of yes warms my heart. Helen still appears at the company, but her expression is peaceful. As an advisor, particularly as a counselor for female employees, she utilizes her experience. The color of previous prejudice has disappeared, and rather, she has become actively supportive of young women. I want to make my struggles nourishment for them. There is no more hesitation in my mother-in-law's eyes as she speaks these words. Occasionally, she can be seen visiting the childcare facility to play with Alice and the other children. John is dedicating himself fully to reforming the company. He recognizes and fully supports my talents as his wife. At board meetings too, he actively develops new proposals. His advocacy for true professionalism beyond gender walls was attracting attention within the industry. The buildings you design have soul. When my husband evaluates me like that, I feel truly happy. His former indecisive attitude has receded, and his figure speaking with firm conviction about his vision earns deep trust from employees. Smith Construction's transformation was creating ripples throughout the construction industry. Active recruitment of female engineers, emphasis on work-life balance, coexistence of tradition and innovation. Other companies began introducing similar measures one after another, and the entire industry is gradually beginning to change. Smith Construction is becoming the industry's model case, isn't it? When we received such evaluation in an industry magazine interview, our family across 3 generations exchanged proud glances. Family meetings are held every Sunday in the living room of our new home. Helen participates too, and we openly discuss everything from company policy to family plans. Sometimes opinions clash, but no one hides their true feelings anymore. Alice is growing up healthily within this warm family circle. The future reflected in her eyes must surely be more free and full of possibilities than our era. As the Texas sunset dyes the new company building, I spread out my blueprints. The next project is a training facility for nurturing female architects. Into these drawings, I pour my thoughts for the new era. That incident taught us many things. That tradition is something to be protected while simultaneously evolving. And above all, that family bonds can overcome any trial. Smith Construction's new history has just begun. And our family's story too continues to add new chapters. Under the vast Texas sky, our challenge continues.
In the flashing red lights of the emergency ward, I was checking the chart of my last patient. It was my 5th year as a night shift nurse at Mass General Hospital. Though I should have been used to the late-night commotion by now, tonight it seemed particularly grating on my nerves. The ambulance sirens, doctors calling out orders, and the beeping of heart monitors all merged into a discordant symphony. Good work today, Emma. Go home early and get some rest, a senior nurse called out kindly. I nodded while checking my smartphone. 3 messages from Mom, my father's blood pressure readings, a photo of the New England clam chowder she'd made for dinner, and a reminder about tomorrow's family meeting. Looking at the soup photo, I could picture Mom's worried expression. 2 years ago, Dad had suffered a mild stroke and took early retirement from his construction company. Under strict medical guidance, he had to give up the work he'd done for over 30 years. Since then, Mom has been meticulously monitoring his health. His meals are strictly low sodium, and he never misses his daily walks. I try to visit them as much as possible during the day after my night shifts. Just thinking about tomorrow's family meeting makes my stomach churn. The topic is the inheritance from my paternal grandparents. Last month, my Uncle George, Dad's brother, suddenly passed away, and his share was to be divided between my brother and me. The total amount is about $2 million, including a house in Cambridge, investment trusts, and my grandparents' savings. My brother James has been building a successful career as a director at the construction company, earning over $150,000 a year. His new wife Rachel, whom he married 2 years ago, is a 34-year-old real estate agent. As a top seller at Boston Real Estate Partners, she posts photos of luxury property viewings on Instagram and hosts open houses on weekends. She drives around in a Lexus RX, draped in luxury brands, playing the perfect wife on social media. But lately, something's been off with my brother. Especially since the inheritance discussion came up, his attitude toward me has suddenly turned cold. My once kind brother, who used to invite his little sister over for steak dinners on holidays, now barely responds when we meet. When I invite him to Sunday brunch, he brushes me off with a simple, "I'm busy." Mom seems to have noticed too. After a church community gathering, she called me, sounding worried. "That child has been acting strange lately," she said. She mentioned catching Rachel making suspicious phone calls late at night. Mom was also concerned about the new car purchases and the constant stream of expensive brand name items. Though my brother and his wife live just a 10-minute walk from our parents' house, they've been showing up less frequently. "Emma, your brother seems tired. He's been working more overtime lately." Indeed, James didn't look well. Despite talks of a promotion at work, he seemed to have lost his vitality. I hadn't missed how his shoulders would slump slightly whenever Rachel made another lavish purchase. Leaving the hospital, I drove through the pre-dawn streets. In the quiet residential area of Cambridge, Massachusetts, near Harvard University, my parents have lived in the same house for over 30 years. This is where my brother and I grew up. Our weekend shopping trips to Whole Foods Market and family dinners at Legal Seafoods, these memories seem to be losing their color amid the recent tension. Driving along Charles River, I contemplated tomorrow's family meeting. The inheritance discussion surely wouldn't go smoothly. Rachel's behavior, my brother's attitude, our parents' concerns, everything was intertwined, creating an oppressive atmosphere. As an emergency nurse, I've handled numerous crisis situations, but this family crisis might prove to be my most challenging case yet. With my nurse's salary of $75,000, I was already juggling work with helping care for my parents, and now I faced this family crisis too. I parked and made tea in my apartment's open kitchen. Outside the window, a new day was beginning to dawn. Tomorrow's family meeting would surely change something. That premonition filled the room quietly, along with the steam from my hot tea. A heavy atmosphere hung in my parents' dining room. The aroma of Mom's homemade New England clam chowder wafted from the open kitchen. "She'd been cooking this soup since morning," she said. It was a labor of love, made with reduced sodium for Dad's health and packed with finely chopped vegetables. The clock showed 6 p.m. 5 of us sat at the table: Dad, Mom, James, Rachel, and me. The dining room, surrounded by antique china cabinets, had been our family gathering place for over 30 years. But tonight, none of the usual warmth could be felt. Only the sound of the air conditioning emphasized the unusual silence. "Well, shall we discuss the inheritance matter?" Dad's voice seemed to tremble slightly. Since his stroke, his right hand had become somewhat impaired, and he gripped his spoon with his left. A blood pressure log sat by his place, filled with Mom's detailed records. According to George's will, his share is to be split equally between James and Emma. At Dad's words, I noticed Rachel's expression tighten momentarily. She was unconsciously touching her new Cartier watch. Last week, she had proudly shown off her new Lexus to Mom at Whole Foods Market. That Lexus now gleamed in the parking lot. However, regarding the grandparents' inheritance, that's when it happened. I accidentally dropped my soup spoon. Cream-colored soup splattered across the white tablecloth. A small amount landed on Rachel's new blouse. The luxury brand tag peeked out at her collar. "You filthy woman. Clean this up right now." Rachel's scream echoed through the quiet dining room. The next moment, she grabbed her soup and threw the hot liquid at me. New stains spread across the tablecloth. "Rachel!" Mom screamed. Hot soup dripped down my chest. Though I avoided burns, my blouse was ruined. But what hurt more was my brother's reaction. "Either pay for it or get out," James said coldly, criticizing me. No trace remained of my once kind brother. He placed his hand on Rachel's shoulder, his eyes tired. "James, how could you?" Mom's voice trembled. Dad watched the scene speechlessly. His blood pressure monitor sat on the table like a silent witness. I stood up quietly. As an emergency nurse at Mass General Hospital, I should have been trained in staying calm during crises. I deal with life and death situations daily and make level-headed decisions. Yet I couldn't stop my tears at this humiliation in front of my family. "Excuse me," I said as I left my seat. Rachel shot me a triumphant look, her expensive earrings glinting in the evening light. As I headed to the door, I could hear Mom's stifled sobs. Outside, night had already fallen. A cold wind from the Charles River wrapped around my soup-soaked body. I got into my car and gripped the steering wheel, but couldn't start the engine. My vision was too blurred with tears to see anything. This home held over 30 years of memories. When Dad had his stroke, my brother and I had taken turns staying at the hospital and supporting Mom. The weekly family meals, Thanksgiving turkeys, Christmas apple pies, all should have been warm memories. Family photos on the walls still showed smiles that had now been lost. But why? Why had my brother become so cold? Where was Rachel's money for her extravagant spending coming from? Were our parents' worries justified? The new car, luxury brands, endless parade of expensive items. Could a real estate agent's salary really support that lifestyle? The more I thought about it, the more confused I became. My quick decision-making skills in the emergency room were useless when it came to my own family problems. The composure I maintained in medical situations meant nothing here. My phone vibrated. Looking at the screen, I saw a message from Mom. "Emma, I'm so sorry. You did nothing wrong. Don't come home tonight, just go somewhere and relax." Unable to find words to reply, I started the engine. I'd go back to my apartment, take a shower, and try to forget about today. Mom's words weighed heavily on my heart. However, the night wasn't over yet. Before the soup stains could dry, our family crisis would take a new turn. Just after getting out of the shower in my apartment, my phone rang. It was past 9 p.m. The screen showed Mom's number. I thought it might be another apology for the dinner incident, but her voice had a completely different tone. "Emma, come quickly. I found some documents." Mom's voice was shaking. Whether from excitement or fear, I couldn't tell. Her usual composure was gone, her distress evident even over the phone. While I was vacuuming Rachel's document bag in Dad's study. "I'm coming right now." Fighting my exhaustion, I drove back. The road along Charles River was wrapped in darkness. The usually pleasant night view now seemed to cast ominous shadows. When I arrived home, Mom was waiting at the entrance. Her usually neat gray hair was slightly disheveled. Dad had taken his blood pressure medication and was already asleep. She said he'd seemed more tired than usual at the weekend church community gathering. "Before you take off your coat, look at this." Mom led me to her bedroom. On the antique bed lay an expensive leather business bag, the same brand Rachel had been carrying when Mom saw her at Whole Foods Market. A stack of documents taken from inside lay illuminated by the room's light. It was in the corner of the study. Rachel brought it yesterday and seems to have forgotten it. Normally I'd never look, but I picked up the documents. They revealed shocking facts. Collection notices from multiple banks. Unpaid credit card bills totaling $300,000. Luxury car loan default notices. Divorce settlement papers from a previous marriage. Suspicious real estate contract documents. All the papers revealed the dark side of Rachel's luxurious lifestyle. The new Lexus RX, Cartier watch, designer brand clothes, it was all built on debt. Her income as a real estate agent was disappearing into maintaining the facade of a luxurious lifestyle. "It seems she's done this before, married for inheritance." Mom's voice mixed anger and sadness. Checking the dates on the documents, they were all recent. The debts had especially increased since the grandparents' inheritance discussion began. Those late-night phone calls must have been from debt collectors. Last week I heard her arguing with someone in the middle of the night. Mom sighed. As a nurse, I'd seen many patients suffering. In the emergency room, I'd faced people in life crises. But I couldn't understand the psychology of someone who would deceive family like this. "Do you think James knows about this?" I couldn't immediately answer Mom's question. My brother's exhausted expression, increased overtime, Rachel's expensive purchases, his abnormal reaction at dinner. All the puzzles were slowly connecting. Let's consult Bob. Bob, Dad's best friend and lawyer. He often joined our family dinners at Legal Seafoods, a trusted advisor. He could help us sort out this problem from a legal perspective. We arrived at Bob's law office at 8 a.m. the next morning. Mom looked like she hadn't slept at all, clutching the stack of documents we'd found last night. Let's have some coffee first. Bob asked his secretary for coffee before starting to review the documents. His eyes, which had graduated first in his class from Harvard Law School, grew increasingly stern. This is a serious matter. After reviewing the documents, Bob frowned deeply. Receipts from Whole Foods Market, luxury brand purchase records, and collection notices from multiple banks, everything pointed to one large fraud scheme. Let's investigate Rachel's past immediately. The previous husband situation concerns me. Bob's investigation was swift. Rachel, or rather, Karen Miller. Shockingly, she had been married 3 times before, all to wealthy families. The last marriage was 3 years ago. We received shocking testimony from that family. She disappeared like a thief in the night right after the inheritance, the ex-husband's mother said over the phone. She got $3 million in inheritance, left nothing but debt, and vanished. The police are still looking for her. Her method was always the same. Target wealthy families with upcoming inheritances, play the perfect wife. Post ideal married life on social media, attend church, build a good reputation in the church community. Drive luxury cars, wear brand names, pose as a successful real estate agent. Then disappear after securing the inheritance. This time, Uncle George's sudden death had disrupted her plans. The inheritance discussion came up earlier than expected, and with debt collectors closing in, she was getting desperate. The new Cartier watch, the Lexus RX, all were just props in her scheme. So last night's soup incident was planned too. Anger seeped into Mom's voice. She had tried to drive me away to improve her position in the inheritance negotiations. It was a strategy to separate my brother from me and divide the family. My chest hurt thinking that even the moment when the New England clam chowder splattered might have been part of her calculations. Further investigation revealed suspicions about her real estate dealings too. Her high-value property transactions at Boston Real Estate Partners, behind the seemingly impressive sales record were traces of sophisticated money laundering. Even the weekend open houses were likely all for show. We might need to report this to the police, Bob said. Especially the real estate dealings, they could constitute fraud. Just then, my phone rang. It was my brother. Emma, we need to talk. Legal Seafoods for lunch. His voice was shaking. Had he noticed something too? His exhausted voice carried a hint of its former warmth. After explaining the situation to Mom and Bob, I headed to the meeting place. At the restaurant along Charles River, my brother sat alone by the window. His usually neat tie was crooked. I've discovered Rachel's true identity. James began speaking with a tired expression. After I left last night, he'd become suspicious of his wife's behavior and checked the documents in the study. There he found the divorce settlement papers. An internet search of the ex-husband's name led him to the whole truth. He even found blogs from other victim families. "I'm so sorry for doubting you." Tears glistened in my brother's eyes. After a long silence, we embraced like the close siblings we once were. Memories of celebrating birthdays at this restaurant in our childhood came flooding back. Outside the window, the surface of Charles River quietly reflected the light. We reaffirmed that our 30-year sibling bond couldn't be easily broken by one fraudster's schemes. "Let's go see Mom and Dad." Just as we were about to head home, James's phone rang. It was Rachel. "You know everything now, don't you?" "But I have my side of the story. I'm ready to tell you everything." Her voice lacked its usual arrogance. Behind it, someone could be heard yelling, probably a debt collector. As an emergency nurse, I could recognize the voice of someone backed into a corner. There was genuine fear in her voice. The situation was about to reach its climax. This family crisis, unlike anything I'd experienced in Mass General Hospital's emergency room, was heading toward its final phase. The family meeting was held in a private room at Legal Seafoods. Dad, Mom, James, and me. Bob was also present. No one spoke while waiting for Rachel. She arrived 10 minutes late. Gone were her usual luxury brands, replaced by a simple dress. "I'll tell you everything." Rachel, or rather, Karen, sat down and took out a notebook labeled "Confession Note." "My real name is Karen Miller. I've been married 3 times before, and I lost all the inheritance money I got. I'm a gambling addict." Her confession lasted 3 hours. Orphaned young when her parents died in an accident, she was raised by wealthy grandparents and inherited their fortune at 18. But she lost everything at casinos. Since then, she'd been repeating a cycle of marriage fraud to obtain money, only to lose it all to gambling. This time was supposed to be different. I really did love James. But the debt collectors were closing in. Tears flowed from her eyes. Dad let out a deep sigh, and Mom lowered her eyes sadly. "I'll turn myself into the police. I'll confess to the real estate fraud too." Just at that moment, the private room's door opened. 3 men appeared. "Pay up your debts." The debt collectors. I instantly rose with my emergency nurse's instincts, moving to protect Dad. "I'll pay everything back," James suddenly stood up. "But on one condition. Karen must admit to all her crimes and enter a rehabilitation program. And agree to an amicable divorce." "James." Karen called her husband's name with a trembling voice. 1 year later, the family gathered again in Dad's dining room. Dad's blood pressure was stable, and Mom's homemade New England clam chowder was on the table. James had paid off the debts and finalized his divorce from Karen. She was now at a rehabilitation facility, continuing her battle against gambling addiction. The inheritance was divided according to legal succession. But we had regained something even more precious. "Emma, would you like more soup?" I nodded with a smile at my brother's gentle voice. Dad and Mom wore peaceful expressions too. The sunset over the Charles River quietly illuminated our family's new shape. As an emergency nurse at Mass General Hospital, I've witnessed many crises. But now I can say with certainty that family bonds can heal any wound. Our weekend shopping at Whole Foods Market and dinners at Legal Seafoods had returned to normal. Yet it was different from before. A new normal had begun for our family who had weathered the crisis together. Dad's blood pressure readings looked good. Mom smiled as she checked his health management notebook. Time moves forward, people change, but family endures. The gentle afternoon light streamed into the dining room, illuminating our renewed bonds.
As the sun began to rise, I went to wake up my son Kevin. Even in mid-October, the Arizona morning was still warm. The soft light streaming through the window illuminated my son's small face. "Kevin, it's time to wake up." Opening his eyes slightly, he showed his usual sleepy smile. He's grown into such a quiet child for an 8-year-old, but with such a warm heart. Even when eating his breakfast cereal, the way he carefully brings each spoonful to his mouth reminds me of his father, who passed away in an accident 5 years ago. I'm Linda Mitchell, 35 years old. I've been working as a nurse in the pediatric ward of our local hospital while raising my son as a single mother. 3 years ago, I married Richard, whom I met through a mutual friend, and began a new life with our blended family. Richard works as a middle manager at a real estate development company. He has a gentle personality and is truly kind to Kevin. My son adores him and calls him Dad. However, on weekdays, Richard tends to be overly dedicated to his work, often not returning home until after 8 in the evening. "Good morning, Mom." Kevin came down to the kitchen and started eating his usual Cheerios. Since starting 2nd grade, he's gradually become more independent. He particularly excels in art and science classes, receiving high praise from his teachers. We live in a 4-bedroom house in a quiet residential area on the outskirts of Phoenix. We're financially stable, and we often spend weekends together as a family. Kevin has many friends and increasingly spends time playing with neighborhood children after school. However, there's one thing that concerns me: my relationship with my mother-in-law, Patricia. Patricia retired after serving as an elementary school principal for 20 years and now lives alone about 15 minutes away by car. We've made it a habit to have dinner together 2 or 3 times a month. While she's highly regarded in the community as an educator and plays the role of an understanding grandmother on the surface, the reality is somewhat different. I first noticed something was off at Kevin's 8th birthday party. Patricia gave expensive gaming consoles and brand-name clothes to Richard's sister's children, her biological grandchildren, but only gave Kevin a stationery set. I still can't forget my son's expression from that moment. When taking family photos, she would subtly insist on positioning Kevin at the edge, claiming, "It makes for better composition." Each time this happens, my heart aches. She frequently uses the phrase, "Blood is thicker than water," and the weight of those words sometimes cuts through our hearts like a sharp blade. Richard tends to blindly trust his mother's words and actions. "Mom's an education professional," he says, without deeply considering the meaning behind her behavior. He often tells me I'm being oversensitive. But with my experience as a nurse and having lived as a single mother, I'm confident in my ability to see through people's true nature. Still, our daily life was peaceful. Mornings meant taking Kevin to school, then working at the hospital, and picking him up in the afternoon. In the evenings, we'd wait for Richard's return and have a late dinner together. On holidays, we'd go hiking at Camelback Mountain or visit the Desert Botanical Garden. In those everyday moments, we truly felt happy. It had been a month and a half since the new semester began. While Arizona's autumn days were still hot, the mornings and evenings brought pleasant breezes. This day, too, started like any other. Outside our window, Halloween decorations were beginning to color the streets. No one could have imagined what was about to unfold. The local hospital where I work is close to the center of Paradise Valley District, about 15 minutes by car from the Mayo Clinic. Even though I work part-time, I find fulfillment in my days, encouraged by the smiles of our young patients. Though I work fewer hours than before, my colleagues are understanding and readily adjust schedules when I need to attend my son's school events. Over these 3 years, we've gradually become a true family. On Sundays when Richard is off, we enjoy shopping at Kierland Commons, bulk buying groceries for the 3 of us at Costco, or cooking dinner together with fresh ingredients from Whole Foods, with Kevin helping in the kitchen. Patricia showcases our life on social media as a wonderful family dynamic. With her reputation as an educator, she apparently has many followers on Instagram. But behind those smiling photos she posts, I know what she's really thinking. Richard's first marriage didn't last long. While Patricia calls that fate, she clearly feels uncomfortable about his marriage to me. In particular, it's obvious she's not happy about me having a child from my previous marriage. At every family gathering, she casually brings up stories about my late husband, watching Kevin's reactions. Still, my son has grown into a strong child. During a recent parent observation day, I couldn't help but feel proud seeing his serious expression during the science experiment. His teacher praised him for being a good friend who understands his classmates. Whenever I see my son like this, I whisper in my heart that his Father in heaven must be proud too. That day began like any ordinary Tuesday morning. In the kitchen, Kevin was spooning his usual Cheerios. The weather forecast on my smartphone predicted another typical Arizona autumn day. "Mom, I'm excited about today's science experiment." Kevin spoke enthusiastically after finishing his cereal. From what his teacher, Mr. Brown, had told me, they were going to learn about the states of matter today. Seeing my son's eyes sparkle makes my heart warm naturally. After breakfast, we got into our Subaru Outback. The school route was less crowded than usual, making the journey to Desert View Elementary School especially peaceful. When I dropped him off at the school gate, Kevin smiled and waved, saying, "Bye, Mom." As I watched him walk away, I had no idea just how significant this day would become for our family. The hospital shift was busy as usual. The pediatric waiting room was filled with children who had fallen ill during the seasonal change. It was also flu vaccination season, creating long lines at reception. It was just after 2 p.m., during such a busy time that I barely had time for lunch, when the internal phone at the nurse's station rang. "Mrs. Mitchell, there's a call from the police," my colleague Jane informed me with a worried expression. In that moment, maternal instinct coursed through my entire body. My hand trembled slightly as I picked up the receiver. "This is Linda Mitchell." "This is Officer Martin, the school resource officer assigned to Desert View Elementary. There's an urgent matter we need to discuss regarding your son Kevin." Though the police officer's voice was calm, the weight of his words hit me directly. A theft occurred at the school last night. And I'm sorry to say this, but Kevin has emerged as a suspect. The world seemed to stop at those words. Could you please come to the school as soon as possible? Yes, I'll head there right away. After hanging up, I took a deep breath. In my confused mind, I tried to organize what needed to be done next. First, I needed to contact Richard, so I called his office. Richard, I got a call from the police. Kevin is suspected of theft at school. On the other end of the line, my husband showed an unexpected reaction. Kids will be kids, don't overreact. His words left me speechless for a moment. But the police. I'm really busy with work right now, let's talk tonight. The call ended there. Though confused by my husband's response, I knew I needed to hurry to my son. I explained the emergency to my supervisor, who immediately understood. During the few minutes it took to leave work and get to my car, my head was filled with images of my son's smiling face. His innocent expression as he waved goodbye at the school gate this morning. The sparkle in his eyes as he looked forward to the science experiment. Why would my son? I arrived at the school just after 3 p.m. The schoolyard, usually full of children's energetic voices, was quiet at this hour. Upon entering the building, an administrative staff member was waiting and immediately guided me to the principal's office. Several people were already waiting in the principal's office, which had a heavy atmosphere. 2 police officers, male and female, Vice Principal Johnson, and Mr. Brown, Kevin's teacher. Kevin wasn't there. Where's Kevin? My voice trembled slightly. He's waiting in another room. Don't worry, a counselor is with him, the female officer answered kindly. Let me explain the details of the incident, the male officer began, looking down at the documents on the desk. Last night, $250 in cash was stolen from the faculty room. This morning, an early shift teacher discovered that the desk drawer had been ransacked. The security camera captured footage of a suspicious person. And the officer paused briefly, looking at me as if checking my reaction. Before classes began this morning, 2 $100 bills were found in Kevin's desk. They were brand new bills. The remaining $50 bill is still unaccounted for. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the window only emphasized the heavy atmosphere in the principal's office. The ticking of the wall clock seemed unusually loud. This must be some mistake, I said with a shaking voice. Kevin would never. We also find it hard to believe that such an excellent student would be involved in something like this, Mr. Brown spoke quietly. However, as evidence. At that moment, a faint child's voice could be heard from the hallway, probably from the classroom where Kevin was waiting. My maternal instinct made every cell in my body tremble. I had to protect my son. But what could I do in this situation? Richard's cold response from earlier stung my heart anew. Why did he react that way? I understand he's busy with work due to the real estate market downturn. But still, his only son is facing such serious allegations. May I see the security camera footage? I asked, trying to maintain my composure. My experience as a nurse was helping me stay somewhat level-headed in this emergency. Let's not panic, but verify the facts one by one. Yes, it's ready, the male officer nodded. However, depending on the content of the footage, some shocking facts may come to light. Are you prepared for that? At that time, I couldn't understand the meaning of those words. I just believed that something in that footage would prove my son's innocence. My life as a single mother raising my son, building a new family, struggling each day, it felt like everything hinged on this moment. Outside the window, the end-of-day chime began to ring. As its echo faded, the police officer started preparing a laptop. The blinds in the principal's office were lowered, and the bluish light of the projector illuminated the wall. My heart was beating violently, as if synchronized with that light. Now, let's view the security camera footage from last night. The footage began, showing 1:23 a.m. on the timestamp. The image quality was surprisingly clear, probably from a recently installed security system. The angle captured the entrance to the faculty room, with sufficient lighting showing far down the hallway. The moment I saw the person in the footage, I gasped. Though dressed in a black hoodie and pants, their gait was unmistakable. That characteristic way of dragging the left foot slightly. Patricia. My mother-in-law's name escaped my lips involuntarily. The person in the footage was undoubtedly Richard's mother, Patricia. That distinctive walk due to her chronic osteoarthritis of the knee was obvious to anyone who knew her. The air in the room seemed to freeze instantly. The police officers exchanged glances, nodding slightly as if confirming something. The footage continued. Patricia entered the faculty room with practiced ease, beginning to open desk drawers. Her experience as a former principal had probably made her familiar with the school's layout. She wore rubber gloves, meticulous preparation to avoid leaving evidence. The back door key, I said with a trembling voice. Yes, Vice Principal Johnson responded. We believe Patricia Mitchell may still have had an old key from when she served as principal. In the footage, Patricia took the cash and then moved further into the building. Another security camera angle showed her entering the second-grade classroom. Yes, she went to place the money in Kevin's desk. In my mind, the pieces of the puzzle were coming together. Her cold glances at Kevin during monthly visits. The intentional positioning in family photos. The perfect family facade on social media hiding her true nature. It was all part of a calculated plan born from her twisted obsession. The police officer quietly continued explaining. A search warrant had already been executed at my mother-in-law's home. They found the black hoodie and old key, decisive evidence. Why? I managed to say. Why would she do this? But I already knew the answer. Patricia had a strong attachment to Richard's first marriage. Even after the divorce, she kept photos of his previous wife and would bring her up whenever possible. Then came his marriage to me, a single mother with a child from a previous marriage. She had never accepted it. Blood is thicker than water. Her catchphrase now echoed with heavy meaning. To her, Kevin would forever be an outsider. An obstacle to her perfect family image. Something to be eliminated. These twisted thoughts had given birth to this despicable plan. Mrs. Mitchell, the female officer, spoke gently. An arrest warrant has already been issued. Officers will be arriving at her home shortly. Hearing those words, I thought about my son. Kevin, waiting in the next room, knowing nothing. How could I explain this to him? How should I tell Richard? Please let me see Kevin. My voice was steadier than I expected. Natural maternal strength was welling up inside me as I faced this new trial. Outside the window, orange-tinted clouds drifted quietly. Let me share some details about the house search as well. The male officer pulled out new documents. In addition to the black hoodie seen in the security footage, we found gloves, old-school blueprints, and the missing $50 bill at the suspect Patricia Mitchell's residence. As I listened to this explanation, flashbacks of my mother-in-law's daily gestures played through my mind. During monthly visits, her subtle way of probing about Kevin's school life. Her insistent requests for school event photos. And her occasional reminiscences beginning with, "When I was principal." Perhaps it was all preparation for this plan. The suspect had stored a large amount of school-related materials, the officer continued. Of particular interest were the current building plans and security system documentation. We believe she used her position as former principal to gather information. Vice Principal Johnson showed an apologetic expression. Actually, when she visited the school last month, she said she came to retrieve some old mementos and took some old documents. At the time, given our trust in her as the former principal. Those words revealed my mother-in-law's cunning nature. She had methodically prepared by exploiting her reputation and trust as an educator. The old key used in the crime was probably found during that visit. Her social media post history is also important evidence. The female officer presented new materials. The suspect posted family photos the day before the incident. With the caption, "Wonderful time with my beloved family." We believe this may have been creating an alibi. Looking at that photo, I felt a chill. Next to my smiling mother-in-law, Kevin was positioned small and at the edge. That post had been part of the plan too. While playing the perfect family on social media, she was preparing to frame my son. Her duplicity made me feel sick. "Please handle the arrest with care," Mr. Brown expressed concern. "She's a prominent educator in the community. When this becomes public, it will cause significant ripples." Indeed, he was right. Having served as principal for 20 years and remaining active in educational lectures after retirement, her arrest would undoubtedly shock the local community. But I had more pressing concerns. Has Richard? I searched for words. Has he been contacted by the police? We've already notified him, the officer answered. Your husband said he would return to the office immediately. His cold attitude from our earlier phone call stung my heart again. At that time, he probably couldn't have imagined his mother's crime. I wondered what expression he would show when he learned the truth. Regarding counseling for your child, the vice principal began, the school will provide maximum support. Caring for a child who has experienced such trauma is our top priority. While I expressed gratitude for those words, new anxieties washed over me. The long battle ahead. A time when family bonds would be tested. I needed to be strong to protect Kevin and our new family. "Ma'am," a police officer entered from the hallway. "Patricia Mitchell has been arrested and is being transported to headquarters." In the window of the darkening principal's office, I saw my own determined expression. Soon after, the principal's office door burst open, and Richard rushed in. His usually neat hair and clothes were disheveled. His face was etched with indescribable anguish. "Linda, did Mother really?" I silently nodded. My husband collapsed into a chair, covering his face with both hands. His earlier cold demeanor had vanished, replaced by deep sorrow and confusion flowing from his entire being. "Let me see Kevin." Richard's voice trembled. With the police officer's permission, we went to the adjacent room. The moment he saw our son waiting there, he rushed forward and embraced him tightly. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, I didn't believe in you." Kevin seemed unable to fully comprehend the situation. "Did Grandma want to make me look like a bad kid?" At his innocent question, we parents were left speechless. The following weeks felt like being caught in a storm. Patricia was charged with breaking and entering and theft. During the investigation, her twisted motives came to light. "I wanted a perfect family," she reportedly testified during questioning. "I couldn't accept that a child with no blood relation would become part of my son's family." A psychiatric evaluation revealed tendencies toward extreme perfectionism and obsessive-compulsive disorder. Eventually, she received a suspended sentence considering various circumstances. However, for our family, the most important judgment lay elsewhere. A few days after the sentencing, Patricia requested a visit. After much deliberation, Richard decided to see her alone. When he returned about an hour later, though exhausted, he expressed a firm resolution. "Let's end our relationship with Mother here." I embraced my husband's shoulders at those words. I understood all too well the weight of his decision. Time passed, and the season was approaching spring. Kevin continues weekly meetings with the school counselor. Though he was often silent at first, his expressions have gradually softened. "Mom, guess what? I did the best in today's science experiment." Hearing such joyful reports from my son at dinner time is now my greatest happiness. Richard, too, has adjusted his work schedule to return home earlier whenever possible. We cherish our time together as a family more than ever before. About 6 months after the incident, we decided to take a new family photo. At a local photo studio, we took a picture of the three of us together. No longer pushed to the edge, Kevin shows a bright smile between us in the middle. "This is our real family photo," Richard said, and Kevin happily hugged both his parents. That photo, which now graces the first page of our new family album, became proof of our fresh start, freed from rigid notions of blood relations. On weekends, we still enjoy hiking at Camelback Mountain and admiring seasonal flowers at the Desert Botanical Garden. We've come to appreciate such ordinary moments of happiness more deeply than before. Kevin's recovery is progressing well according to his counseling evaluations. Family bonds aren't determined by blood alone, the counselor's words resonated deeply with us. These days, we no longer worry about family photos posted on social media. Instead, we live each day filled with genuine smiles, unburdened by likes or others' evaluations. One evening at dusk, while preparing dinner in the kitchen, I heard my son and husband laughing in the living room. They were working on science homework together. That natural parent-child atmosphere brought tears to my eyes. "Hey, Mom," Kevin suddenly asked after dinner. "We're happy, aren't we?" I could answer without hesitation. Yes, very happy. Outside the window, the Arizona sunset gently illuminated the desert landscape, as if blessing the beginning of our family's new story. During the criminal trial, Patricia made an unexpected confession. Her twisted obsession traced back to Richard's first marriage. "That wife was someone I had chosen," Patricia testified in court with a trembling voice. She had impeccable family background and education. But Richard left her and married a single mother. Hearing those words from the gallery, I understood the meaning behind my former mother-in-law's subtle gestures. Distancing Kevin's seat at Christmas dinner. Deliberately making him appear small in school event photos. All were actions to protect her ideal family image. According to the psychiatrist's testimony, the pressure of being an educator for many years had also influenced Patricia's behavior. 20 years as a principal, constantly pursuing perfection. The distorted values developed during that time had contributed to this incident. After the sentence, a letter arrived from Patricia. Richard initially wanted to tear it up, but I convinced him we should read it. It contained words of regret and apology. "My foolish prejudices threatened your happiness. I know it's unforgivable. But please let me say one last thing. The bond of your family was far stronger than I ever imagined." After reading that letter, Richard remained silent for a long time. A few days later, he proposed a new family rule. "Let's make Friday our family night. I'll leave work early, and we'll watch movies or play board games together." That proposal was immediately put into action. Now, Richard looks forward to Friday nights more than anyone. Last week, Kevin won at Monopoly for the first time, and cheers echoed throughout the house. At school, Kevin is definitely doing better. His teacher, Mr. Brown, told us he's become the class mood maker. In science experiments, he's always eager to take observation notes. Counseling sessions have been reduced to once a month. Kevin's resilience is remarkable, the counselor evaluates. It's thanks to the deep love of both his parents. Over these 6 months, our family has learned many things. There's no such thing as a perfect family. What matters is caring for and supporting each other. More than blood ties, it's the accumulation of small daily happiness that creates a true family. Last Sunday, while looking up at the blooming saguaro cactus at the Desert Botanical Garden, Kevin suddenly said, "Hey, this cactus is like our family." "How so?" I asked, and my son proudly explained. "Well, see how it starts as one trunk, then new branches grow, but they all stay connected and become a big family. That's just like us." At those words, Richard and I exchanged glances. The precious truth captured by our son's pure observation. Indeed, we are like the saguaro cactus, each branch supporting the others as we live and grow. A breeze announcing spring's arrival gently caresses the desert landscape. Carried on that wind, our new story quietly but surely moves forward. My name is Elga. Since retiring and moving in with my daughter Tara, her husband Hector, and my grandchildren Sage and Noah, my daily life has been incredibly fulfilling. Sage is 8 years old, and Noah is 6. The days I spend watching their smiling faces are truly happy moments. One morning, while I was preparing breakfast in the kitchen, Sage bounced in energetically. "Grandma, good morning. Are we having pancakes today?" she asked, her eyes sparkling. Good morning, Sage. Yes, we're having your favorite pancakes today, I answered with a smile. Yay! I love your pancakes, Grandma. Sage exclaimed happily as she sat at the table. Following Sage, Noah appeared in the kitchen, still sleepy-eyed. Grandma, good morning. What's for breakfast today? He asked, still drowsy. Good morning, Noah. We're having pancakes today. Come sit down, let's eat them while they're warm, I answered gently. Tara and Hector came into the kitchen too. Looking at the breakfast I had prepared, Tara smiled and said, Mom, thank you as always. Thanks to you, every morning starts smoothly. That's right. We're really grateful to have you here, Hector added. I laughed shyly and replied, being able to do something for my family brings me joy. After breakfast, I helped Sage and Noah get ready for school. Come on, you two, hurry and get ready. We don't want to be late, I said, gently nudging their backs. Yes, Grandma. Sage and Noah responded energetically. Watching them, I felt truly happy. Every day, watching them grow brings me more joy than anything else. As I saw them off, I wished these happy times would continue forever. One afternoon, when Sage should have been home from school, she was nowhere to be seen. While preparing dinner in the kitchen, I kept looking out the window, but Sage hadn't returned. This is strange, it's so late. I murmured. Just then, Tara came home through the front door. Mom, where's Sage? She asked anxiously. She hasn't come home yet, I answered. She should have been back by now. I'll call the school, Tara said, quickly picking up the phone. However, even the school staff had no information about Sage's whereabouts. I need to contact Hector, Tara said with a trembling voice. Mom, what if something happened to Sage? It's okay, Tara. There must be a reason, I tried to calm her down, though I was growing increasingly anxious myself. When Hector came home, we explained the situation to him. After hearing what happened, Hector said, we need to contact the police right away and have them start searching. Sage, where are you? Tara whispered with tears in her eyes. When the police arrived, we gave them detailed information about Sage's photo and recent behavior. Sage is very cheerful and makes friends easily, I told the police. She hasn't been acting unusually lately. The police officer calmly took down the information and said, we'll begin the search immediately. We'll gather as much information as possible by asking neighbors and friends. That night, none of us could sleep. Every time the phone rang, our hearts jumped, but there was no information about Sage's whereabouts. Sage, where are you? Please be safe. I whispered like a prayer. Tara and Hector looked pale with worry, and Noah kept asking through his tears, where did Big Sister go? Your sister will surely come back safely. The police are looking for her too, I said while hugging Noah, though my own heart felt tight with anxiety. The police investigation continued the next day, but Sage's whereabouts remained unknown. The whole family split up to search the neighborhood, contacting Sage's friends and their families, but no one had seen her. Sage, please come back. Tara said through her tears. Tara. We won't give up until we find Sage, I said with strong determination. While hope and anxiety battled in my heart, we continued to pray for Sage's safety. Several days passed without any news of Sage's whereabouts, and our family's hearts grew heavier with each passing day. One evening, Noah quietly came to me. "Grandma, I know where Sage is," he said with a serious expression. "Noah, really?" I looked at him with surprise and concern. "Yes, I saw it in my dream. Sage is at the mountain cabin," he said with conviction. Noah had sometimes predicted things with his mysterious ability before, but this story seemed hard to believe. Still, I couldn't ignore his words. "The mountain cabin, you mean that old cabin?" I asked skeptically. "Yes, that's where Sage is," Noah nodded. Taking a deep breath, I decided to tell Tara and Hector about this. "Tara, Hector, I need to tell you something," I said carefully. "What is it?" Tara asked anxiously. "Noah says he knows where Sage is. He saw it in a dream." I explained. "In a dream? Is this true, Noah?" Hector asked, surprised but with a serious expression. "Yes, Dad. I know Sage is at the mountain cabin," Noah answered again with conviction. "If what Noah's saying is true, it's worth trying," Tara said with determination. "Yes, I think so too," I agreed. "Let's call the police." I immediately called the police and told them about Noah's dream. "My grandson says he saw in a dream that Sage, who's missing, is at the mountain cabin. It might sound unbelievable, but I think it's worth checking," I explained, trying to control my urgency. After a moment's silence, the police officer said, "All right. Please tell us the location of the cabin. We'll need Noah's guidance." And so, we set out for the mountain cabin with the police. We got into the car, heading to the cabin while praying for Sage's safety. Upon arriving at the cabin, the police officers began preparing something while communicating over their radios. Noah was quiet beside me, but his small hand held mine firmly. "Grandma, Sage is really in there," Noah said in a small voice. "I believe you, Noah. I believe in both you and Sage," I answered, trying to reassure him. We carefully entered the cabin, moving past old furniture and dusty floors. Noah looked around with a serious expression and pointed, saying, "The basement is this way." The police officers followed Noah's directions and stood in front of an old door. The door was heavy and rusted, but the officers managed to open it together. A staircase appeared, leading to the basement. "Please be careful. We'll go first," a police officer said. We slowly descended the stairs. The basement was dark and chilly, with an eerie silence hanging in the air. The police officers moved forward, lighting the way with their flashlights. "Sage! Sage!" I called out. Noah also shouted, "Sage, are you here?" Suddenly, we heard a faint voice. "Here, help!" A weak voice echoed. "Sage! Hold on, we're coming to help you," I shouted. The police officers moved toward the voice. The flashlights illuminated the dark basement as we hurried toward the sound. Standing before an old wooden door, the police officers again combined their strength to open it. However, Sage wasn't inside. We were confused for a moment but continued our search. The basement of the cabin was like a maze, and the police officers moved forward cautiously. Suddenly, Noah stopped. "Grandma, not here." "She's further in," he said. As we moved deeper, we encountered another door. The police officers worked together to open it, but there were traps set behind the door. Suddenly, something heavy fell, causing the police officers to step back. "Be careful, there might be traps set up," a police officer warned. We continued exploring the cabin's basement carefully. Though we couldn't hear Sage's voice anymore, we didn't give up. Eventually, Noah stopped again. "Here," he said firmly. The police officers trusted Noah's words and opened another door. There was Sage. She was bound and trembling with fear. "Sage," we rushed to surround her. "It's okay now," Tara gently said to Sage. Sage whispered through her tears, "Mom. I was so scared." "You don't need to be scared anymore, Sage. Everything's all right now," Tara said soothingly. As the police officers freed Sage from her restraints, Hector carefully lifted her up. However, at that moment, heavy footsteps echoed from behind. I turned around and gasped at the man standing before us. "Zion," I said with a trembling voice. I could see Tara's face tighten. Zion looked down at us with a sneer. "Elga, Tara, it's been a while," he said mockingly. "Zion was my ex-husband." "What are you doing, Zion?" "Give Sage back," I shouted. "Give her back." "I can't do that. She's part of my plan," Zion said coldly. The police officers aimed their weapons at Zion. "Don't move, put your hands up," one officer commanded. "Nothing you do will stop me," Zion laughed defiantly, stepping closer. Madness lurked in his eyes. "Elga, I haven't forgotten how you betrayed me back then," Zion said, fixing me with a sharp glare. "I swore to have my revenge on you and Tara." "Zion, please, stop. Sage has nothing to do with this," I pleaded desperately. "Nothing to do with it. She's part of my plan." "I'll be satisfied watching you suffer," Zion said cruelly. The police officers approached Zion, warning, "Don't come any closer, or we'll shoot." "Go ahead and shoot if you can," Zion provoked them. In that instant, he pulled out a gun from his jacket. The police officers reacted immediately, shouting, "Drop the gun," but Zion kept it aimed at us. The situation was tense. "Zion, please, stop," I pleaded through tears. "It's too late, Elga. I'm here to make you suffer," Zion sneered. One of the police officers seized an opportunity and lunged at Zion. The two struggled violently, and the gun fell to the floor. Hector, still carrying Sage, moved us to a safe place. "Sage, hang in there." Tara encouraged Sage. The police officers subdued Zion and handcuffed him. "You can't do anything more," an officer said sternly. Pinned to the ground, Zion cursed at me, "Your suffering isn't over yet. I'll be back." "No. Never appear before us again," I said coldly. I hugged Sage tightly and said, "It's okay now, Sage." Suddenly, Zion rose with surprising strength and charged toward us. One police officer shouted, "The handcuffs weren't properly secured." "Run," another officer shouted, but Zion was already upon us. Zion snatched Sage from Hector with incredible force. A maniacal smile spread across his face. "I'll never forgive you, Elga. I'll take everything from you, your family too," he said in a low voice. At that moment, Noah stood in Zion's way. "Stop. Let Sage go," he shouted in a strong voice. Zion laughed mockingly. "What can you do, kid?" Noah hesitated for a moment, looked around, and spotted the fallen gun. "Let Sage go," Noah shouted again as he quickly picked up the gun and aimed it at Zion. "Noah, stop!" Hector and Tara shouted simultaneously, but determination showed in Noah's eyes. Zion was surprised by Noah's action and showed signs of faltering. In that instant, Noah quickly threw the gun aside and threw sand in Zion's face. Zion stepped back, covering his eyes. At that moment, the police officers all jumped on Zion and subdued him again. This time they secured the handcuffs properly. "We won't let you escape now," an officer said. Sage was still trembling but ran to Noah and hugged him. "Thank you, Noah, you saved me," she said through tears. "You don't need to be scared anymore, Sage," Noah said gently. The police took Zion away, and we could finally feel safe. Hector and Tara held Noah and Sage tightly. "Noah, thank you so much. You saved Sage," I said gratefully. "I love Sage, so I'll always protect her," Noah said proudly. "Thank you. I love you too. Let's always be together," Sage said. "Yes, we're all family," I answered while hugging them both. The subsequent police investigation revealed the details of Zion's crime. Zion Anderson was born and raised in what appeared to be a normal household, but his inner self bore deep scars from childhood. His father was strict and violent, and his mother, unable to endure the domestic violence, left home when Zion was 10 years old. After that, Zion became the sole target of his father's anger, an experience that deeply affected his psyche. After graduating high school, Zion enlisted in the military, essentially fleeing his home. In the military, he found temporary stability in the strict training and discipline, but his later combat experience further deteriorated his mental state. After discharge, Zion took civilian jobs, but the anger and loneliness in his heart never disappeared. Meeting Elga was a temporary salvation for him. Touched by her kindness and warmth, Zion found hope in having a family. However, around the time their daughter was born, his inner demons resurfaced. Zion gradually began trying to control Elga and their daughter, becoming violent. When Elga decided to divorce him, unable to endure his violence any longer, Zion was consumed by fear and anger at losing his family, and since then, he's been burning with revenge. Zion's obsession with Elga and their daughter grew stronger. He lurked in the shadows, monitoring Elga's life and keeping track of her movements. Zion made his final decision to act when he learned about Elga's new life. Seeing her living happily with her grandchildren sparked intense jealousy and anger, and he decided to destroy her happiness. Zion purchased the cabin and began plotting there. He planned to kidnap Sage to make Elga suffer as his revenge. On the day of the kidnapping, Zion abducted Sage coldly and methodically. There wasn't a shred of hesitation in his heart. His only purpose was to make Elga suffer. He imprisoned Sage in the basement, finding temporary satisfaction in watching her tremble with fear. However, as Elga and the police closed in, Zion's plan began to unravel. After his arrest, Zion was tried in court. His cruel actions shocked the public, and many people trembled at the darkness in his heart. Zion showed no signs of regret or remorse for his actions. Even in court, he continued to express his grudge against Elga and her family. "I won't forgive them. They destroyed my life," Zion shouted in court. However, the judge and jury paid no attention to his words, and he was sentenced to a heavy punishment. Zion would serve a long prison term, and his life was completely destroyed. In prison, he was isolated from other inmates and never understood the weight of his crimes, only continuing to dream of opportunities for revenge. Years later, Zion was involved in a violent incident in prison and was severely injured. He was taken to the hospital, but along with his physical recovery, his mental illness worsened. His mental state deteriorated further, and he was eventually transferred to a psychiatric hospital. Life in the psychiatric hospital was like an endless nightmare for Zion. He remained trapped in his past actions, unable to let go of his hatred for Elga. Doctors attempted to treat him, but Zion's darkness was too deep, and he never fully recovered. Meanwhile, Hector, Tara, Sage, Noah, and I were finally able to return to our peaceful life. Though Zion's shadow had disappeared from our lives, I couldn't completely shake off the anxiety deep in my heart, so I decided to seek advice from Walter, my friend who was a former detective. I called him and asked if we could meet in person. He agreed right away, and we arranged to meet at a nearby cafe. "Elga, it's been a while. How have you been?" Walter greeted me with a smile. "Walter, actually." I told him in detail about Sage's kidnapping and Zion's involvement. Walter listened to my story with a serious expression. "That must have been terrible. But I'm glad you're safe. Now, how can I help?" Walter asked. "Walter, I want to protect my grandchildren going forward, but I'm not sure how. I'd like advice on strengthening our security measures and ways to protect ourselves from people like Zion," I requested frankly. After thinking for a moment, Walter said, "First, it's important to enhance your home security. Installing security cameras and an alarm system would be good. Also, it would be reassuring for you to receive some self-defense training." "Thank you, Walter. I'll follow your advice," I replied gratefully. That night, when I returned home, I said to my grandchildren, "Sage, Noah, we're going to stay strong from now on. For that, we need to always be prepared." "Yes, Grandma. I'm going to get stronger," Noah nodded. "I'm not scared anymore, because you're here, Grandma," Sage said with a smile. Several days had passed since Noah helped save Sage. Everyone acknowledged that his courageous action had saved our family. I was seriously thinking about how to accept and nurture Noah's special ability. Then, Noah came to me. "Grandma, my power is really strange, isn't it? I wonder why I can do these things," he asked. "Noah, your power is special. If it can help protect our family, why don't we try to understand it better and learn how to use it properly?" I gently suggested. "But how?" Noah asked anxiously. "First, let's learn about your power together. Then we'll train so you can use it when necessary," I explained. After that, I decided to investigate Noah's power more thoroughly with the help of experts. We began training to help him control his ability. We started with simple meditation and concentration exercises, gradually increasing the difficulty. "Grandma, this is like magic," Noah exclaimed excitedly. "Yes, but this is a real power. By strengthening your mind and body, you can develop even greater abilities," I smiled. Sage also became interested in Noah's practice and started joining in. "Noah, can I practice with you?" she asked. "Of course, Sage. Let's get stronger together," Noah answered. And so, our family accepted Noah's special power and worked to nurture it. His ability became key to protecting our family, and we were determined to continue growing together. "Grandma, we'll always be together, right?" Noah asked. "Of course, Noah. We'll always be together. Whatever difficulties come our way, we'll overcome them," I answered firmly. A year later, our family was living a new life. Sage had regained her bright smile, and her laughter echoed throughout the house. Noah had also learned to control his power and confidently embraced his ability. One day, we were enjoying a picnic in the garden. While making a flower crown, Sage said happily, "Grandma, look. This is for Noah." "Thank you, Sage. It's really beautiful," Noah smiled in response. His expression showed no trace of his former anxiety or fear, only pure joy. "Noah, we were truly saved thanks to you." "We can't thank you enough for your power and courage," Hector said. "I'm glad my power could help. But I'll keep working hard to become even stronger," Noah answered with determination. "Yes, we'll all continue to grow stronger together," Tara responded with a smile. As evening came, we went back inside and spent time in front of the fireplace. Sage sat on my lap reading a picture book, while Noah quietly listened nearby. I felt happiness deep in my heart. "Sage, Noah, you make me so happy. Let's always stay together," I said to them. "Yes, Grandma. Let's always be together," Sage responded energetically. "Of course, Grandma. We're family," Noah nodded. Watching Sage and Noah's smiling faces in our warm home, my heart filled with gratitude. No matter what challenges come our way, we'll overcome them together, I vowed in my heart.